The elements. Abilities which everybody wants, and if you deny that, then you're in denial. But these two are the only fighters that have been both physically and emotionally scarred by their powers. Shoto Todoroki, the half-and-half hero, and Prince Zuko, the future Fire Lord. In today's episode, I'll analyze both their weapons, armor, and abilities to see which one of these two will face their final fight. The Fire Nation. A nation full of people that believed that just because they were firebenders, and just because they were of the Fire Nation, that they were apparently better than everybody else, and had some sort of superior genetic advantage that gave them the right to rule over the world. Wait, why is this sounding so familiar? Getting back on topic, this nation was ruled by a power-hungry dictator named Ozai. Ozai believed in one thing, and that was power. This caused him to greatly appreciate his daughter Azula. However, this caused him to dislike his son, and today's fighter, Zuko. You see, Zuko wasn't a prodigy like his sister, so he was more so loved by his mother than by his father. His mother brought him up well, until one day she mysteriously vanished. After that, Zuko grew to become quite arrogant and a bit spoiled. This caused him to call out a decision made by a Fire Nation general in a war meeting that he was invited to. After apparently dishonoring the general, he was challenged to an Agni Kai, a one-on-one duel between firebenders. Zuko thought he'd be fighting the general, but apparently he was fighting his father. After refusing to fight his father, Zuko was scarred and discarded. He was sent away and banished from the Fire Nation, being told the only way he'd be allowed to return is if he was able to capture the Avatar and bring him back to the Fire Nation. The Avatar was the only person that could ever stop the Fire Nation's plans, since he had the unique ability to bend all the elements. Zuko, after searching for the Avatar for many years, found him along with his two companions. However, these three kept on thwarting his plans. After several attempts on the Avatar, he ran into his sister, who branded him a traitor and forced he and his uncle to go into hiding. After several months of hiding, he met back up with his sister and Aang, and the two fought Aang together. The two defeated Aang and, quote-unquote, killed him, and then Zuko returned to the Fire Nation. However, after returning to the Fire Nation, Zuko discovered and remembered that his father and all the firebenders there weren't exactly the nicest people, and the Fire Nation was a far cry from what it used to be. So Zuko left the Fire Nation, teamed up with Aang and taught him firebending, swearing to take down his father and eventually restore the honor of the Fire Nation. With Zuko's backstory out of the way, let's talk about what he can do. Zuko obviously is a firebender since he taught Aang how to firebend. Firebending is a unique form of bending, which allows the user to turn their chi into fire, because even though most elements rely on an outside element, firebending is unique, whereas, as I said, it can turn chi into fire. This basically allows Zuko to shoot fire from any part of his body. He can shoot fire from his hands, from his legs, he can even shoot fire from his mouth if he wants to. He can also control a small amount of excess fire, however he's not able to bend other people's fires away. He can only make small amounts of flames hotter, or basically increase their size. Fire isn't the only thing Zuko can do, however. He has two swords which he uses to great efficiency. He's been able to take down several Fire Nation members, he's been able to take down several other Earthbenders, and he's basically been able to go through an entire Fire Nation platoon all by himself when only using his swords and not his bending. So obviously he's incredibly skilled with his swords. The final ability Zuko has is the ability to redirect lightning. Even though most firebenders can produce lightning, Zuko has not shown this ability, but he can redirect it. He was able to even redirect his father's lightning, which was hit him from a point-blank range. As for feats, during Zuko's final fight with his sister, he and his sister were creating fire waves so large they nearly destroyed a large temple and covered most of that temple in fire with a single blast. He's been able to damage large warships with his fire, go toe-to-toe with his sister, the Avatar, and even when he had his swords and his father didn't have his bending, his father backed down because he was too scared of his son with his swords. He's also, as I said, redirected a bolt of lightning, but he's also ran up to and actually jumped in front of a bolt of lightning before it could hit Katara. Zuko's also one of the few non-glass cannons in his verse, as he was able to take his massive warship exploding right in his face and only came out with a couple of bruises and scratches. However, despite this, Zuko is not perfect. For one, he's an emotional teenager, so his emotions can get the better of him. And for second, most of his feats come from Sozin's Comet. And Sozin's Comet basically gave every firebender this massive boost. So Zuko's feats from this don't really count towards his overall power. I will go over two scenarios, one with the comet, one without it, but I just wanted to mention that here. And finally, he was only able to defeat his sister after his sister basically went insane and basically turned her into a reckless fighter. So even though Zuko has these flaws, he's still a very powerful firebender, and if you mess with this fiery prince, you're gonna get burnt.
All hail Fire Lord Zuko!
Power. Something that can corrupt even the greatest of us, and one person that fell to that fate was Enji Todoroki. Enji was lucky enough to receive a quirk, a unique superpower that 80% of the population had. He had a very powerful one, Hell Flame. With this, he became one of the most powerful men on the planet, and the number 2 hero. However, no matter how hard he tried, there was still one man he could never surpass, All Might. He tried and tried, but could just never beat the man, so he eventually gave up on trying to surpass him himself, and began to work on creating a child that could. He married a woman named Rei to try and accomplish this, who had a very powerful ice quirk. They had 3 kids together, however, Endeavor was never satisfied, as they all had some weakness holding them back. However, on his 4th attempt, he created his masterpiece, Shoto Todoroki, today's fighter. Todoroki was born with both of his parents' quirks, however, I will get into that later. After realizing this, Endeavor pushed his son as hard as he could, however, Rei wasn't happy with this, constantly telling Endeavor to back off and ease up on her son. However, Endeavor wouldn't listen to this, and would often abuse his wife. After this happened several times, Rei snapped, as Todoroki's left side reminded her of Endeavor, so she scolded him with hot water. This caused Todoroki to become scarred, and then he began to hate his father, as his mother was taken to a mental asylum, and he blamed his father for causing his mother to go insane. This caused him to stop using his fire powers, swearing he would become a hero without them. However, after going to UA, a school for heroes, he began to realize something after fighting Izuku Midoriya. He realized,
It's yours! Your quirk, not his!
With his resolve strengthened, and realizing that he shouldn't let his parents decide what he became, Todoroki began to fully embrace his powers, and started to become the hero he always wanted to be. He did this by accepting both of his parents' quirks, and using his own, half hot, half cold. His left side, Todoroki can create fire, and with his right, he can create ice. With his right side, Todoroki's been able to create ice slides, giant ice walls, and even create giant icebergs. He was able to create one so big it covered an entire Olympic stadium, and later on, he created one so big it covered most of a forest. And more recently, he was able to create one which didn't impair his vision and actually had massive spikes on it. And with his left side, Todoroki's able to create flames. He's able to create streams of fire and also fireballs as well. And if he needs to, he can always turn up his heat's intensity by increasing his flames to blue flames, which allows him to create flames so hot it nearly managed to melt Tetsu, someone made of iron, and was compared in power to his own father's flames. However, he doesn't just rely on his quirk, as he also has several bits of equipment. He has a first aid kit which helps him recover his wounds, and he also has a vest which allows him to cool or heat himself up depending on which side of his quirk he uses. Plus, he also has 2 bracelets, both of which help with this problem as well. As I said before, Todoroki was able to create a giant iceberg which covered most of an Olympic stadium, and his fire is just as powerful as his ice, if not more. So both his ice and his fire should easily reach multi-city block levels of power. As for durability, Todoroki is able to take hits from Izuku as well as Bakugo. Bakugo was able to destroy every single window within a 5-mile radius with just a single explosion. And Izuku was able to casually destroy giant robots, which were the size of multiple buildings and could even crush buildings. And he was also able to destroy Todoroki's ice with just a single flick, which, as I said, was the size of multiple city blocks. He was also able to keep up with Izuku when using 5% full cowl, he was able to keep up with Ida when using his reciprocal burst, and he was able to keep up with Stain, all of which are faster than Shoji, who could dodge bullets. And as I said, Todoroki is on par with Ida, who could easily blitz Ibira, who could react to Kaminari's electricity attack. So, Todoroki's also very fast. As for stamina, Todoroki was able to fight for hours while running through a forest, and was barely out of breath. This took him about 3 hours to do, so Todoroki clearly has very good stamina. However, Todoroki isn't without flaws. For example, he's weak to piercing weapons, as Stain, someone who's a lot weaker than him physically, was able to nearly kill him from a few cuts. Not only that, but if Todoroki uses one side more than the other and overuses one side, he can either suffer from frostbite or from heat exhaustion. Also, despite what one's justice might make you think, Todoroki is not a very good close-up fighter and prefers to fight at a range. But despite this, Todoroki is easily one of the most powerful characters in his verse, and is definitely a hero you would never want to mess with. Both fighters are ready to go, and let's see which one of these two will face their final fight.
The Avatar was last spotted somewhere around here. I've got to find him quickly. Hold it. You're Prince Zuko, heir to the throne of the Fire Nation, correct? And what of it? There has been an order issued to eliminate you on sight. I dare you to try. Fight! Choose the next words wisely. They will be your last. Now that you're down, I shall contact the Fire Lord. How did you burn through my eyes so quickly? Kamehameha! You were a good fighter, Prince Zuko. It's time I end this fight. Honor!
A massive, enormous thanks to Speedy the Assassin. He helped with both the animation in terms of sound, and he also provided the voices for both Zuko and Todoroki. So give him a huge thanks, and please go check out his channel. He's a great guy, and he definitely deserves your subscription. And our winner is Todoroki, and let me explain why. At first glance, you might think this is pretty close, however, it really isn't. Let's start off with Todoroki's strength. Todoroki, in terms of strength, was able to cover a massive giant arena with his ice, which was the size of multiple city blocks. And he could also cover a large portion of a forest as well. So this definitely means he has multi-city block to even small town levels of destructive capability. And his fire is just as strong as his ice, if not stronger. This gives him a massive edge compared to Zuko, and Zuko was only able to nearly destroy maybe let's be generous and say city block sized arena with his fire when the comet was active. And when you don't count the comet, he's only shown maybe multi-wall level feats. So Todoroki definitely has the edge in terms of power. Durability is the same as their attack potency, at least for these two, so let's go on to speed. While yes, Zuko can react to lightning, this isn't the return stroke of lightning, which moves about 200,000 miles per hour. This is very impressive. However, while this is impressive, it's not really impressive compared to Todoroki's speed. Todoroki is able to keep up with Ida, who could easily blitz Ibira. Ibira was able to react to Kaminari's electric shock attack. And what's interesting about that is, as shown during the training camp arc, Kaminari's electricity can be channeled through a generator, which means it can also be channeled through a wire, which means it has to be moving at the same speed as wired electricity. Wired electricity moves at approximately 2,706,164 miles per hour, which, if you divide by Zuko's speed, means Todoroki is over 30 times faster than Zuko, which takes away Todoroki's weakness to piercing weapons, as that would mean Todoroki would be way too fast for Zuko to land a hit with the swords. And I'm just going to debunk a few things people might point out. Well, yes, firebenders have the ability to enhance other flames from outside sources, and some have been able to even redirect them. Todoroki's amount of fire is way too fast for Zuko to be able to redirect. Remember, Zuko's barely able to redirect small amounts of fire, so do you really think a massive fire blast would be able to get redirected by Zuko? I honestly don't believe so. However, even with his sword advantage taken away, Zuko isn't completely without advantage in this fight. He has better training and experience compared to Todoroki. However, that's really all he has. Todoroki heavily outclasses him in basically every other category. And even if Zuko could get a few hits on Todoroki with his blades, Todoroki could just create a giant ice wall, get behind it, and use his first aid kit in order to patch up his injuries. And for all those that might point out that, yes, Zuko was able to burn people with his fire, which is something Todoroki hasn't shown, well, I'd like to point out that 1, with his blue flames, he was nearly able to melt someone made of iron. 2, during his fight with the ninjas from a different hero school, he was surprised he wasn't able to instantly melt metal, which implies that's something that he can normally do. He was also able to melt a giant iceberg the size of a giant stadium within about 10 seconds. And it took Zuko 30 to melt a small ice ball, which was only the size of him. So, who do you think has the hotter fire? I know Zuko got stronger from that point, however, that still just gives you a big example of how big the gap between these two actually is. So while Zuko would put up a tough fight with his better experience and better training, as well as better hand-to-hand skills, Todoroki was just too strong, too fast, and too durable for Zuko to take down. So at the end of the day, it looks like Zuko got freezer burned. The winner is Todoroki.